Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Um, it's good to see you. We're getting started with our second Messy Church Live conversation this afternoon. My name is Johanna Myers. I'm coming to you from Greenville, South Carolina, in the United States. I think I heard Greg say this morning that he was doing his Facebook Live this afternoon, or for him at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's now 3 o'clock in the afternoon for me here, which is really just kind of mind boggling, isn't it? That Greg's already in tomorrow, and it's just, 3 o'clock this afternoon here. So, hi, Lucy. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Um, Thanks for passing off the stress of going live with Facebook. I appreciate that. Why is it that going live on Facebook is more, I don't know, it's more nerve wracking than like speaking in a church or congregation or something? Hi, Martin. It's good to see you here. Um, yeah, so we'll wait a few more minutes and let some people join us. And I'm looking forward. Hi, Becky. Looking forward to chatting with you today. So I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, like I said, and that is right at the foothills of the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains. So my part of the Appalachian Mountains we call the Blue Ridge. So the Blue Ridge Parkway and some other just kind of beautiful, beautiful mountain areas. We're right in the foothills of that area. So Greg said that it was cold in Australia this morning, or where he was in Australia, and they're heading into winter. Well, we are heading into summer here, and it is awfully hot. I don't know why. I have lived in South Carolina my whole life, and every year summer surprises me with how hot it is. We're looking at afternoon thunderstorms, and it's high humidity, and it's around 85 today. I think that's like what, 20 something for those of you that use, for like the rest of the world that uses Celsius. So yeah, definitely getting hot. So yeah, we'll give it a couple more minutes. It's right at 3. Um, I'm not this whole like looking at the chat and um, yeah, trying to do two things at once. Always fun. Um, let's see. I haven't had a chance to meet really any of you in person. Um, Even Lucy, like that makes me sad that I have missed both of the international conferences because I was working on my doctorate at the time, and I was traveling back and forth between here in the States and Wesley House in Cambridge. So I don't know if we'll have any UK folks that are familiar with Wesley House, but that's where I was studying and just kind of trying to travel back and forth. I couldn't make it work to be at the international conference. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting some of you live and in person when we can travel again. This world traveler is feeling a little bit sad that might be a while. Um, so let's see. Give it another minute or two and we'll start our devotion. Um, Lucy, did it warm up where you were at? The last time I saw you, it was really cold. And I'd really like to send some of this heat your way. Um, yeah, my air conditioning is running like full max. And it's starting to kind of cloud over. So yeah. Oh, I know, Lucy, it says it's strange. We've talked on Zoom, right? A lot and over the phone, but we haven't actually met face to face, which is just crazy. Um, so yeah, oh, one of these days, right? One of these days we will meet in person. I feel sure, hopefully sooner rather than later. I don't know about y'all, but if I don't get out of town or out of my house or kind of out of the same old surroundings, I might start to get a little stir crazy. Starting to get kind of sick of the same old view. All right. Well, it's a few minutes after 3. Um, so I brought oh, a thick jumper, sock, slippers. Yeah, I'm sweating. I'm tempted to get up and go turn my ear on even lower. And I was gonna light this candle to get us started, but ooh, I don't know if I need more heat right now. But yeah, let's light the candle and kind of start our time together. Um, I brought my little bird candle. Um, so we'll remember the bird is a sign of the Holy Spirit and the light as the light of Christ. God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is with us in this time. Yeah. And isn't that amazing that we can be spread out all over the world and across the seasons and across the time zones, and yet God is ever present with us. So that's an amazing thing. All right, so I am in a part of the world and actually in a part of our country that is opening up and is opening back up very quickly. It's a little nerve wracking here. Some of you may have seen that South Carolina is, yeah, we're failing miserably at social distancing, and yet my church is starting back on Sunday with with in-person worship, kind of slowly and hesitantly, but that's where we're headed. So it's a very weird season. We're all a little our whole church staff's a little yeah, we're a little nervous. We're on edge right now. Um, but when we come back together, we've had to make a lot of changes, and that's going to be true for all of us. And that our worship, whether at Messy Church or in our traditional churches or Fresh Expressions or kind of wherever we're worshiping, these things are going to look different. Our worship will look different than it had before, and I know even within our own congregation, people are already starting to kind of mourn and lament those differences. Oh, Cornwall, that's on my bucket list, Mary. I might have to find time to come one of these days. I might show up in Cornwall and come visit you there. That's definitely on my travel list. So maybe if it was raining here, it wouldn't be quite so hot. But yeah, so in this kind of changing season for worship, one of the things that I know that I'm personally mourning is the fact that we won't be singing together anytime soon. Who knew that singing together would be so incredibly dangerous? But that's where we're at. And for this Methodist girl, not singing in worship, not singing together in worship is, whew, it's gonna be tricky. Yeah, that I think of all the things that we're gonna do differently, not singing together is gonna hurt the most. So thinking about some of my favorite hymns that I won't be singing, at least not in worship. I'm sure I'll be singing them around the house. But one of my favorites is "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing," and I think that's when I think that was written by somebody in the UK. But it's just one of my favorites, and I love the lyrics. It's just really a personal. It's just a song that always touches me. But there's the line in that hymn that says, "Here I raise my Ebenezer," and I always laugh, right? How many times do we sing hymns and we sing lyrics that we're not even exactly sure of what they mean? So how many times have we sung "Here I raise my Ebenezer," and like what exactly are we raising when we raise an Ebenezer? Who is this Ebenezer guy? And yeah, so the story behind that's kind of our devotion, I guess, for today. So the story behind Ebenezer is from 1 Samuel chapter 7-ish, somewhere starting around in there. A little background, but the Israelites, Samuel was the judge, prophet, kind of leader during the season, and the Israelites had messed up yet again, and had kind of strayed from God. And after another round of conflict with the Philistines took the Ark of the Covenant. Hi, Crystal. The Philistines had taken the Ark of the Covenant away and kind of out of Israel, and things were just quite the disaster. I laugh because if you read the story about what happens while the Philistines have the Ark of the Covenant, it goes to one city, bad things start happening. That city says, "Look, we don't want we don't want this thing. It's causing trouble," and they pass it off to another Philistine city, and same thing happens. Like bad things start happening. They're like, "Dude, we don't want this thing. Y'all take it, send it to another city," and they just kind of pass it around till finally they give up and say, y'all take your ark back. We don't want it. It's causing way too much trouble. So they take the ark back across the border, which the story of that is also equally interesting. But they take it back across the border and just kind of drop it off, like, here, y'all have it, and then they leave. And so this little town across the border into Israel has the Ark of the Covenant, and it stays there for 20 years because it seems that the people, as a whole at least, aren't ready. They haven't really turned back to God, is what Samuel says, and they aren't ready to receive the ark. They aren't ready to receive God into their midst. So finally, after 20 years, Samuel calls everybody together at Mitzvah and says, let's turn our hearts back to God. Let's repent. Let's worship together and kind of welcome the ark back into our presence. And they do that, and so they all gather together, and the Philistines hear that they're all together in one place, and they think, "Ooh, sneak attack." And sure enough, they set out to kind of surprise the Israelites into battle. Israelites turn to Samuel. They're like, "Dude, you got us all here together. Now we're facing another battle. What are we going to do?" And Samuel says, God's going to be with you. God's totally going to be with you. God's got this. And sure enough, God protects the Israelites in battle, and they come out as victors. I'm going to move this candle. I'm talking with my hands, and I'm about to, I don't know, burn myself with that. So God protects them from battle, and it is from there that Samuel takes a stone. I'm sure it was rather bigger than this, but he takes a stone and he sets it in the middle of the Israelites' camp, and he says, essentially, he names the stone Ebenezer, which comes from two Hebrew words, one meaning stone and one meaning help. So he sets the stone in the midst of the people and says that God is the source of our help. And he sets that stone as a reminder of the ways that God has been, the ways that God helped the people then, and all of the years, all of the generations before, and also all of the generations to follow. So when we sing about "Here I raise my Ebenezer," we are singing praise to the God who is the source of our strength, which I think is really lovely. So a few years ago on a women's retreat, we actually we made our Ebenezers, our stones of help. And in addition to thinking about God as the source of our help, we also listed as a women's retreat. So we were listing the women who were sources of help and strength for us throughout our lives. And so many of us came back with these kind of large rocks, which we kind of took out of the church's prayer garden. Don't tell anybody. They haven't missed them. This was a couple of years ago, so hopefully nobody's missing these stones. But we did. We took them and we've kind of written on them. So I have all these different names and churches that are represented. The church that I grew up in, the ones that I've served, professors, teachers, pastors, grandparents, adopted grandparents, Bible study groups, all kinds of people who were sources of strength, were rocks in my life, who helped provide a foundation for me and for my faith. It's got me kind of thinking, because one of the hard things, and Martin, you started this conversation a few weeks ago when we were looking at what it looks like for us to be together, for kind of messy togetherness in this season where we aren't necessarily able to be fully physically present or gathered in large groups. We know that our messy churches are going to have to change. Our churches are going to have to change and adjust, just like not being able to sing. But what does it look like for us to provide space for the relationships like those that are represented on kind of on my stone of help? What does it look like to provide the kind of spaces where these types of relationships can happen? Because there are a lot of different ages represented here. There are lots of different people, different ways that people have kind of come into my life and helped to point the way for me to Christ. So I have, like I said earlier, I haven't been able to be with you at the international conference, but I made a little surprise, not a surprise, it was very much planned, but a little appearance on the video screen, and shared a little video with those of you who are there about our companion groups, which are groups that we've had for the last few years, kind of connected with our messy church at Aldersgate. And our companion groups are small groups, Bible studies, are kind of our, I don't know, they're companions to each other, but they're companions to our messy church as well. But they're groups of about 10 to 12 people, 3 to 5 family groups, depending on kind of the size of our families. And they're intentionally intergenerational. So we might have one couple that are in their 70s, they've got grandkids, maybe their grandkids aren't anywhere close by, but they're in a group with, say, a young couple that has 2 or 3 little ones, different families at different kind of points in their lives. And they've been gathering in these small groups once a month to do a Bible study, to do a hands-on kind of messy church activity, to get their hands kind of messy together. They've been doing mission projects together. They've been eating together. So basically, they've been doing this kind of messy church at home in these small groups. And again, they've been a companion to our messy church. But it has me thinking now that those companion groups, those small groups might be, instead of kind of an accessory to our messy church, might for the next season become the main access that our folks have to messy church, through kind of these small groups where we can more safely gather in groups of 10 or 12, where we struggle to gather as groups of 50 or 60 or more. Our messy church can get rather large at times, and we're really nervous about what that might look like in the future. And one of the things that I loved to kind of see and hear about over the season is how companion groups have stepped up and met via Zoom, or now that we're kind of able to get out and about a little bit more, some of the groups have actually gotten together outside and hung out. We had a little thing going kind of early on where we were passing yard signs around that just kind of said, they were from our anchor church, our traditional church, Aldersgate, but Aldersgate loves you, sending big hugs. And we would kind of go and try to sneak into somebody's yard and put the yard sign out and head out. And those yard signs got passed around to a lot of our church members. It was just a really fun thing to do. But what I loved to see was how, if somebody in one companion group got it, they had a tendency to pass it to the people in their companion groups. Like, those are the people that they were connected to, that they wanted to kind of share this little bit of love with. And those are the kind of connection points. They've really stepped up into this season and taken care of one another and connected with one another. So I see where those relationships have been important. And again, I wonder if that isn't going to be kind of our primary messy church avenue for the next season. I don't know. We're still in that process of exploring that. Greg asked posed the question, and Lucy, I think you did too last week, about what will messy church look like in, I don't know, post COVID-19, or we're nowhere close to being post anything at this point, but yeah, I think, how did Greg word it? What are the opportunities? What are the gifts that we've been given in this season to explore new ways of doing things? And do we need to think small in order to reach big? I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. So yeah. So what does it mean for us to be a messy church? Yeah. Okay, Mary. I see a couple of you saying like this is. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's so much opportunity here, right? To think about messy church and to think about how we do messy church. And it's kind of exciting. Isn't it exciting that we don't have to just be stuck in the rut that we were. We don't have to be stuck in kind of doing the things that always the same way. But we can still do these things with the core values and what it can still be messy church, right? But maybe on a smaller scale. As much as we get kind of energy from the crowds and the I don't know. I love seeing a big messy church. But I keep going back to the names that are on this stone for me. So my kind of Ebenezer, my stone of help. And while some of the names that are represented here are people who were in my life for a short season, all of them were people that I had an opportunity to build relationship with, right? Like there is a space for relationship. And I'm so grateful that I grew up in a church and have served churches where we valued making and creating space for relationships to form. So the question then is, where can we create space for these kinds of relationships to happen? Not just interactions, but kind of genuine relationships, so that people can point the way to God for others. And I know y'all y'all know this as well as I do, that a lot of times it's our kids who point the way to God more clearly and more directly than our adults do sometimes. But I know that so many of the names on this list were people that, particularly when I was a teenager, pointed the way for me and pointed me on my faith journey. So where do we create those kind of spaces? And how do we do that? How do we do it creatively? Becky, I think you're right. Like we need to be about relationships and not numbers. Right? Churches get so caught up into metrics, right? Like one of my classmates is from Northern Ireland. I'm going to quote Roger on this. I'm sure he's not listening, but I'm sure he's not listening. But from Northern Ireland, he says you can't fatten a pig by weighing it, right? You can't fatten a pig by weighing it. So our numbers, our way of kind of thinking about our success, doesn't necessarily translate into deeper and more meaningful relationships. So yeah, Martin says Jesus worked with small to reach big. Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly, right? Like this is Jesus worked with 12 who became what, 72 who then reached out to, I think, in Acts. Lucy, you've been reading Acts, so maybe you can correct me on this, but around the time of the ascension, it was like what 100 and something people, right? And then after Pentecost, it went to 3,000. It kind of blew up from there. But we started with the kind of the small group format. And I know even from within our traditional church, we're having to think about our large Sunday school classes are going to have to rethink about how they gather. So it's not just a challenge for us in Messy Church. It's a challenge across the board. How do we think about this? Um, yeah, Lucy, it's a privilege of space, right? The season is gosh, can we say that it's a privilege? Um, I don't know that I would call it a privilege, but it's certainly like it's an opportunity, right? Um, it's an opportunity. Mary, yeah, already natural family groups, right? So, oh yeah, and the holy habits discussions. I mean, how cool would this be? Um, gosh, we would love, right, for our families to be better equipped for practicing faith at home. But sometimes that takes having other people to kind of weigh in and help and commit to practicing together. So wow, what an opportunity to work on developing this holy habits, not just as a larger messy church or a larger kind of traditional church, but what does it look like at home, and how can we support one another in that? Um, yeah, Martin, this season has stopped big happenings. Yes, big happenings are not happening. We've just started to kind of accept that fact that our national conference in the U.S. isn't going to happen in 2020. It's going to happen in 2021. And gosh, isn't that sad? But at the same time, what does it say to us, and what opportunities do we have kind of in the middle of that? Um, yeah. So I like the conversations that are kind of generating, and I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of think about what this is going to look like in our church as well. I know right now we're so focused on what the return to in-person worship is going to look like, that we're having a hard time kind of seeing the rest of the picture right now. Um, but there's so many opportunities available. There's so many opportunities available, and I think we shouldn't be afraid to think small, um, especially for the season. And we might find that wow, thinking small creates more opportunities to do bigger and better things for the kingdom. Who knows what God's got in store for us. So yeah, I hope the story from Samuel and the here. So the next time you sing, come thou fount of every blessing. Now you know what it means to raise your Ebenezer, to raise that stone of help, to remember the ways that God has been a source of help, and also just the question of how do we create the kinds of spaces where people can help point the way to God for one another. So, yeah. Um, oh, Lucy, you're only on chapter 4 of Acts. You'll get there. You'll get there. It's a fun book. I don't know why you're scared of Acts. Um, it's fun. Snakes and pirate adventures and I don't know. So much fun. Um, yeah, sorry, Becky. Maybe not the best thing right before bed, right? I got a few hours to kind of decompress. Some of y'all are headed right into bedtime. Um, yeah. So let's close our time. Um, yeah, let's close our time with Psalm 61. Another reference to God as our rock, or God as our um, right, Becky, lots to kill over, mull over. Yeah. I didn't know. I thought maybe that was a British thing. That I might have started saying that over here. Just picked up a new British slang. I don't know. So let's close with Psalm 61, verses 1 through 5 as a prayer. Okay. Hear my cry, O God. Listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth, I call to you when my heart is faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you are my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy. Let me abide in your tent forever, find refuge under the shelter of your wings. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Yeah, amen. May you find shelter in God's holy tabernacle tonight and this afternoon and this morning if you're on the West Coast in the US. And may you head to the rock that is higher than any of us when you are feeling overwhelmed in this season, because God is the source of our help and our strength. It's been lovely chatting with you, and I really do hope that I get to meet many of you in person very soon, very soon. Yeah. God bless. Bye.